I guess in my 52-year railroad career, I have walked to the moon and back on railroad platforms just like this in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And I've come to know there are a lot of untold stories and even a few secrets out there involving the railroad industry. Please join us and subscribe so we can continue to bring you those untold stories and even a few secrets from America's railroad past.
All aboard! Highball it, Eagle!
Have you heard the travel news about the Eagle Way? To your destination happening every day. The Texas Eagle is clicking on the rail. From the Windy City to the Alamo, meet you at the station, come on, let's go. People get ready and catch the wave. Catch the wave, the Texas Eagle Way. Through the heart of the nation.
Happy New Year 2024, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my podcast, I've Seen Some Trains Before. Griff Hubbard with you again, and very grateful for your support and participation since I began this project in late 2023. I humbly thank you again. We have a real treat today. I'm going to show you a public service broadcast from circa 1990. And the people involved, if you are from Texarkana or currently reside in Texarkana, you're going to immediately know. But for those who don't, this is an approximate 1 hour long interview about the history and future plans at that time of Texarkana Union Station, the Grand Dame of downtown Texarkana. And the participants, the interviewees, are the then owner of Union Station, Dr. Dan Bookout, and my great uncle, Wilbur Smith, and Texarkana Historian, and officially Mr. Texarkana in his day. But what's really neat about this, the interviewer is a heavy-set and much younger Reverend Mike Huckabee, who later went on to both political and dietary fame. So the reason I want to say a few words about my great-uncle Wilbur Smith, he and my Aunt Edith didn't have children, so I was the youngest niece or nephew, so probably got to spend more time with him growing up than any of the other kids, something that I will always be grateful for. For those of you who don't know, if you're in Texarkana, you already know this, and I give you this background for a purpose that I will state here momentarily. But you know, Wilbur lived to be 98 years old, born in 1902, died in 2000. And if you're a Texarkana resident, you know that the esteemed Service Award for Public Service in Texarkana to this day is named the Wilbur Awards, after, of course, my great-uncle. Also, the only Rotary Club in the world at the time, the Wilbur Smith Rotary Club of Texarkana, named after him during his lifetime. But I say all this in terms of the Wilbur Award. If I'm not mistaken, I believe when the Wilbur Award was created, also in his lifetime, it was also called the Power of One. And if you're from Texarkana, living there now, or from there and have an interest in this, I humbly ask you to pay very close attention here. You know, Texarkana Union Station, again, the Grand Dame of downtown, built in 1929. It was always my uncle's dream to see that station restored and returned to its original purpose and grandeur. And you know, over the years, we've all watched Chicago do it, and St. Louis do it, and Dallas do it, Fort Worth do it, San Antonio do it, LA do it. You could name the major cities ad nauseum who have already restored their stations to the original grandeur. But you know what's happened since 1990? Guess who has also done it? Little Rock has done it, and Arkadelphia has done it, and Hope, Arkansas has done it, and Marshall and Longview, Texas has done it, and Cleburne, Texas has done it, and Temple, Texas has done it. The list goes on and on. It is time, in memory and tribute to Wilbur Smith's dream, to make this a reality for Texarkana. So before we show the video, I want to ask that anybody interested, please give me your contact information in the comments section of this podcast. Because let me tell you where this starts. This starts with the cities of Texarkana, Arkansas, and Texarkana, Texas, coming together and owning the station and the property. And then the process really begins to take a life of its own. In my 52 years railroad experience, I have seen this happen over and over and over. And if you contact me, I don't know how to do it, but I can put us all in contact with the people who can make this happen and make it a reality, as it should be for my hometown, and if you live there, or if you don't, your hometown of Texarkana, USA. So if you're interested, message me in the comments section. Let's put a grassroots effort together and do, truthfully, what everybody else has already done to their rail passenger stations. Make no mistake, rail passenger service is the mobility and economic driver for the future of Texarkana. Let's make sure they have a historic past to predicate their future. We're going to go right into this wonderful video. I hope you will enjoy it. And don't forget, Wilbur Smith is watching. Thank you.
Southwest Meet, it's time to discover Positive Alternatives, a program that helps you celebrate living and meet the kind of people who are making a difference by their lifestyle of faith, hope, and love. You'll meet interesting people. Go with us to interesting places. Learn how to apply principles of positive living to your life. Your host for Positive Alternatives is Mike Huckabee, pastor of Beach Street First Baptist Church of Texarkana.
Many of you are familiar with the familiar landmark of Union Station, downtown Texarkana. We are here at Union Station today for this special edition of Positive Alternatives. We want to welcome you as well as we welcome our guest, Dr. Dan Bookout, whose dream it was to restore this beautiful facility that for so long had been little more than a pigeon roost. Joining us today, sandwiched in between Dan and I, is a very familiar face to Texarkana people, and that's Wilbur Smith, sort of our unofficial but yet very official Texarkana historian. Gentlemen, so glad to have you here. You outdressed me today. I came comfortable and cool on this hot July day, and both of you dressed up like Philadelphia lawyers. I sort of feel outclassed. So,
well, when you go to the junior league thrift shop, then you can dress up like Dan and I.
That's what I've been told. Oh, I want to first of all, let's talk about some of the old days of Union Station, because this facility was built, let's see, 29. That was a day when passenger train travel was exotic, and it was the classy way to travel somewhere, and trains were the norm of public transportation. This facility is obviously well built. I mean, it's solid and it's sturdy, and the structure of it has remained stout throughout all these years, even the years of neglect. But the days of train travel have certainly changed a lot. In 1929, things were a little different down here, I would imagine, weren't they, Mr. Smith?
Absolutely. In 1929, things in Texarkana were traveling pretty slow. It was, of course, everybody was getting rich in the stock market. All the Cheyenne boys and everybody else was getting rich there. But the trains were running. The trains were running in 1929, 1930. Well, of course, 1929, October of 29 was not there.
Now, I know you've not been one to hide your age. You were how old when this train station opened?
Well, I was born in 1902. I was 27 years old.
So were you here when this opened up?
Oh, yes. I was in the middle of this crowd.
Is that right?
Oh, yes, because I felt like that I belonged in the middle of this crowd because I'm a native Texarkanian. And I want to go where the action is. That's the reason I'm here today.
I was going to say, well, that's an appropriate place then. This is an appropriate place for you to be today.
Yeah, the Union Depot was a place where everybody went, because you didn't go any place, you didn't go to the Union Depot.
Dan, turning to you just a moment, and we're going to get back to some of the history, but when you started this project, there were people who laughed and said, there's no way. That's too massive of a project. That didn't deter you at all, and you continued on with it, and today we are in a beautifully restored building. And one of the things I hope is that if people have not been down here, they'll come down here and see this place, because it's remarkable. What instilled in you the dream that this place could live again when everyone else had given it up for nothing but a pile of rubble?
Well, it's an odd set of circumstances that brought me and the Union Station together. As you know, I was just finishing up another project that I had been working on, and that was the Texarkana Baby Project, in which we were able to establish some records. And the airplane was getting a little tired and old, and so I just decided to sell it. And at about the time that I decided to sell it, Union Station became available, I was told, from the folks out at Security Savings. And so I began to toy with the idea of acquiring this piece of property, bringing it back for public use. Since it had been closed up and, as you say, a pigeon roost for decades, we knew it would be a sizable project, and I had found some old documents that indicated that the place was not restorable. And so my wife and I would come down here on the weekends, and we would sweep out this floor, and we'd inspect this floor, and we couldn't find anything wrong, like structural cracks and major defects or faults with it, and we could not find any reason why the building could not be salvaged, other than the fact that it was just going to take a lot of time and a lot of money. And we began to think that this magnificent piece of Texarkana's culture and history could be salvaged and could be restored if the proper team got together, because the estimates had been 7 years and $5 million or 5 years and $7 million, and when you're talking about that much money, it really doesn't matter. It's just almost impossible to do. But we were able to sit down and figure out a way by which, when we sold that airplane, to put this thing together as a project, and it worked very well. And not due to our superior intellect, we've just been very fortunate in having a piece of property that has not deteriorated over the years.
We're looking at one of the shots. This is the clock that is actually behind us here in Union Station. Now that spot occupied, or was a place where a clock was hung for, I guess, many years.
Yes, and it was a white face on that clock that is behind the clock that you see now. When we were doing our construction, one of the construction people came down and told me, just before he painted that face again for restoration purposes, that it was not a painted wooden plastic face. It was instead a pink marble face. Well, none of us believed that anybody would have a pink marble clock. But then it began to dawn on me that all of the parapets are pink marble, all of the shelving, all of the window ledges, and the ticket counters are all pink marble. We have a pink marble water glass filler back in the back, the only thing of this style and kind anywhere in the United States that we're aware of. And I went up and inspected that clock, and in reality, it was a pink marble clock face, and it still is, and we have set the clock face slightly off-center to draw attention to the fact that the original was pink marble and very elegant in its style.
Even as we visit, a train is coming by. One of the things that it was so fascinating, my children are here today viewing the taping, and anytime they have a chance to come to Union Station, they love it down here. And a while ago, a train came through. Every kid in this place tore out to the runway out there to see it. And I remarked to you, I said, when I was a kid, we'd do that for an airplane.
Yep.
These kids haven't seen trains like that.
Right.
This close, it's something that happens over there in the yard somewhere, but it doesn't really take place that close.
And that's the atmosphere of the train station that is now open, and it's open to the public and usable to the public.
Oh, very much so. And we're going to, a little later, I want us to talk about the deli that's here, the restaurant, the meeting rooms.
Yes.
If people haven't caught on to Union Station, they're missing one of Texarkana's greatest awakenings.
This is a habit they can afford to get.
Wilbur, let's go back to the history. Back in 1929, this place was just a bustling center of activity, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I remember distinctly the opening day. You couldn't get another person in here. It was completely crowded. I mean, just packed in like sardines. And of course, the 4 Railroad, all of their officials were here, and it was quite an exciting time. But I just must comment and listening to Dan give his reason. When he's talking about projects there, the next project that Dan Bookout gets in, I don't know, he goes around the world, and then he picks up the Union Depot. I don't know what he's going to do next. He's going to have to re-dig the Panama Canal, maybe.
He may unite West and East Germany, or
right,
or,
right. And we salute you, Dan, for your foresight and your risking your neck and restoring.
Speaking of risking his neck, literally, and you were injured. I think that's something that should be brought out.
Yeah,
a very critical injury, and I guess you're slowly regaining the use of the left arm, but you suffered a fall from when you were out working on a scaffold here.
Yes.
And put you out of commission for several months.
Yes.
Yeah.
During that time laying there in the bed, did you think about giving up this project, or think maybe it wasn't such a good idea?
No, I never did have that sort of depression. I knew that as a doctor and as a pilot, and I had been exposed to so many accidents that others had had in the past, I was perfectly aware of the blessings that I had received in spite of the fall, because it could have been both arms, it could have been my neck, I could have been a paraplegic. There are a lot of things I could have been, and all I've done is have a problem with one arm. However, as certainly as God was my co-pilot flying around the world, and he was my architect here, I hope that he is also Dr. Knight's assistant as Dr. Knight continues to restore this arm.
Well, I've marveled over the months as strength has obviously been regained. I know when we did the Christmas parade, you were just slowly at that point regaining some use, but so much more so now. Remark, these are the chandeliers.
Yes.
When the original Union Station was here, there were some chandeliers, is that right?
Yes, there were.
And they had been taken out. You tried to price some, and they were exorbitant. Tell us the story of how these came about, because I think it's one of the most fascinating stories behind the development of Union Station.
Well, my friend Rusty down at Logan Electric and I had been discussing these light fixtures, and I had received a book telling me how I could acquire some reproduction chandeliers. So I contacted the folks in Connecticut about those reproduction chandeliers, and he was very curt and very short in his dissertation, and he indicated approximately that they were $9,200 a piece, and that after the first of the year they would become $9,800 plus shipping, tax, tip, and gratuity. And he was, very gruff about it. And I said, well, you must be awfully proud of those. And he said, well, I am. And he began to tell me how he made them out of brass and things like that. And so after I talked with him, I got to thinking, well, if he had the wherewithal to do that, and we're doing the station, making chandeliers ought to be a breeze. So I began to figure out bending tailpipe down at the muffler shop. And then I thought, well, that would be a little hard to do. And then I thought about bending plastic PVC pipe. And I thought, well, that'll work, but it's awfully hard to bend a perfect circle, and that's obviously going to be visible to the entire public, and you couldn't hide any defects there. And so I began to try to figure out, how can I get a perfect circle? And the plumber that I have, by the name of Randy Biddle, came to me and he said, when we run gas pipe, 2-inch plastic PVC gas pipe, we do it with material that comes on a spool 5 feet high. And if you were to cut off a piece 10 feet long and just throw it over there on the ground, it would flop into a perfect circle. And the buzzer started clicking right about that time. And he said, and if you cut off a piece 25 feet, it'll fall over there into a perfect circle. And I said, yeah, and we could intersleeve it and put that into a perfect circle, and we could drill holes in it, we could wire it, we could put light fixtures in there. So I worked with Rusty Phelps down at Logan Electric on the parts and materials, and we were able to achieve this as a home-built project, I guess you might say, but it's the American way, to be able to sit down and style and devise and then to create something that you hope will last through the ages. Now, I have no thoughts that might last through the ages. I only hope that it will be acceptable to the public as a reproduction of approximate dimensions.
Well, if someone didn't want to crawl up there and look around, they'll never know the difference.
Believe me, if they go up there, it'll be on a tall ladder and they'll be alone.
Well, and let me tell you, you're looking at one boy who's not getting up a ladder that tall. That's way up there.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And they're prettier than they were originally.
How about
And
that?
you can quote me.
And I just did, and a little less expensive than the $9,800 per fixture too.
Oh, I would say so.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
So if anyone
well,
asks
they're
you,
beautiful.
if anyone should ask me how much those lights are worth up there, I just say $60,000 and walk off with a smile.
That's
on my
right,
face.
absolutely, because that's what it would take to replace them. You may want to finance the rest of Union Station by making fixtures.
Going into a sideline.
That's exactly right.
You don't want any advice, but don't tell the tax assessor that they think they go down.
Oh, I do have
You better-
receipts that indicate that they're not
That's
nearly
good.
that costly.
When let's see. Oh, here I see. We're looking at the.
That's the
Shot
newspaper
there.
shots of the original opening
Okay.
of Union Station.
That's one of the I think frames on the
1930.
wall that
Yes,
hangs here. There's
1930.
several of those that just sort of show some of the history. One of the things that I guess is fascinating about this place, there are some maybe nuances of the culture of the 1920s and 30s that are evident here. Things that people of my generation sort of look askance at because it certainly is not existent now. Example, in the ladies' restroom, the beautiful area for sort of a lounge in addition to the restroom itself. Those kind of things are things of the past. Changing tables for the babies, maybe coming back a little bit for a long time, not really thought about. You mentioned that in those days, people did not readily have indoor plumbing, showers, and all. So the restaurant workers, there was a shower just for them.
Yes.
So that they could
marble
come in
shower.
a marble shower. What are some of the things like that are, let's say, reminiscent more of another era?
A friend of mine told me of a newspaper article that indicated that people would come from as far as Hope and New Boston and Ashdown and Ida, Louisiana, just to flush the commodes because they had running water, and there were rows upon rows of gleaming white fixtures in the bathrooms, and they would turn on the sinks with running water, and they would flush the commodes and running water. Said they were running 1 million gallons a week.
My goodness.
And that was tremendous. And I thought, well, you know, in reality, everything more than 5 blocks from this site, the epicenter of Texarkana's activity, was out of town. I can recall when I was a boy that sewer ditches were open in front of everybody's house, between the house and the road. Open sewer ditches with raw sewer. The fact that the people who worked under those circumstances as laborers and as technicians commonly did take a bath once a week, and that was on Saturday night. And there were 3 reasons for that. One, it was payday. Number 2, that was the night you go out to see your girl, and you only went to see her 1 time a week. And the next day was, of course, church day. And so for that reason, people commonly, or for the majority of the people, only took a bath once a week, unless they lived in town and worked in an office. The end result here was, who would want to be served by restaurant people who only took a bath once a week? And so the Harvey House system put in a marble shower for its kitchen help so that they could take a bath every day.
Now here's a shot, Dan. This is in the restaurant, I believe, isn't
Yes,
it?
that is it used to be called the ladies' retiring room. And it is a very elegant room for the ladies to go and touch up their makeup, make sure that they're all presentable. And we have converted that into a dining room, a meeting room, conference room that's available to the public for eating or meeting purposes. And it is a delightful place to experience.
The meeting room now, do you remember this room, Wilbur?
Oh, yes. But I don't. It was a beautiful room. The mirrors and the ladies' powder room. What it was. Oh, yes, I remember that room.
Well, now, this is a meeting room now. It's available for church groups or civic groups or business organizations or anyone like that. Are you finding that people are beginning to discover that room?
More and more so, it's being discovered on a daily basis, because I think yesterday we had 2 functions, one at lunch and one at dinner. And it is a common experience to have several people calling a day now to reserve that room or other meeting rooms that we might have and those facilities.
What's the capacity of that room?
50.
50. Well, a place for a meeting with 50 people is, we don't have a lot of them like that.
It's a very nice, very low, easy usability, and that's what we try to have available to the public, because there's no problem there. It has air conditioning, it has quiet, it has a very sensitive area for you to be able to do your work.
I know if people come into the main lobby during the hot part of the summer and the hot part of the day, it is warm in here, but the restaurant and the other area are all air conditioned.
Oh yes, the lobby we are attempting to keep in a natural state so that everyone will be able to experience and understand that this is the way it used to be. We may at a future date decide that we don't want to try and tolerate the way it used to be, but for now we would like for everyone to get the experience that this is cross-current ventilation, and this is the type of cool or hot that people naturally experienced. This building was built when air conditioning was unheard of, you see. So hopefully we'll be able to experience and share that with a lot of people. The restaurant, dining, and cooking facilities are all air conditioned.
We will take a brief break here, and we want to thank Dan Bookout and Wilbur Smith. They will be coming back to join us as Positive Alternatives continues. Our program is originating entirely this time via videotape from the Union Station. Maybe we should say the beautifully restored Union Station in downtown Texarkana. And if you've just joined us, we're going to be continuing talking about the way it was, as well as the way it has become. And then we're going to get a little later in the way that it one day will be, as this facility is maybe, I really feel it will become the very centerpiece of activity, not just in downtown Texarkana, but someday in Texarkana itself. And it's an exciting project. We hope that everyone in this area who's not already gathered up the family and come down will make very just immediate plans to do so. Our program is brought to you by Pinewood Hospital and Century Cellunet. We appreciate these fine folks who help to make Positive Alternatives available to you. And if you appreciate Positive Alternatives, be sure and let those folks know and give them a call if they can be of help. Right now we'll take a brief break, and we'll let you hear a word from Century Cellunet. They're the cellular telephone people. From personal experience, I can tell you that once you get used to the convenience of cellular telephone service, you will wonder what in the world you did without it. If you are on the go and you have things to do and you're on the telephone a lot, you can save a lot of office time through cellular service. It's also a great convenience. Some families are finding it, even for just the peace of mind of if a wife is on the road late at night. It's nice to know that she can access emergency help if needed. Century Cellunet. We'll take a break and hear from them, and then we'll come back to Union Station and visit again with Dan Bookout and Wilbur Smith as Positive Alternatives continues here on TV 36.
The Century Cellunet phone has enabled us to, or has enabled me to do, as far as my time, rather than having to go back to the office and be constantly returning calls, I'm able to get on something else that needs to be done there at the office, and what has been normally non-productive time, it has turned it into a very productive time.
Century Cellunet is proud to be part of the Texarkana business community. We look forward to servicing your communication needs for this century and beyond.
Catch the excitement of ACTS TV 36. For the latest program information and news about what's going on ACTS TV 36, we invite you to call in or write in for your free copy of a program guide and the Exciter, the official ACTS TV 36 newsletter. Call us at 774-3600 or write ACTS TV 36, Post Office Box 1469, Texarkana, USA 75504. For your free program guide and Exciter, catch the excitement.
We're back here at Union Station. Dan Bookout, Wilbur Smith visiting with us on Positive Alternatives, and our program is originating from this facility. Dan was talking about some of the things of yesteryear, the people being fascinated by the flushing of commodes and the running of water. Was Union Station at that time sort of considered ahead of its time, that kind of place you'd take the family and ooh and ah and say, wow, what's this world coming to?
Well, if that's my question, remember that this was operated and owned by the Union Station Trust, and that was 4 railroads, and they were tickled to death to keep the cotton belt from having to unload 2 blocks away, and the Kansas City Southern 10 blocks away. For this consolidated facility, this was something to rejoice over. And where they spent a lot of money to give the very latest, which accounts now that Dan has uncovered the beauty of this place. And this is a beautiful place. You ought to come down to see it. It really is.
Now, Wilbur, let me ask you about some of the things that one would have seen in 1929. There were little shops, I guess, or at least a restaurant here.
There was a restaurant, but there were no shops in here except with where you have the place now.
Was it like a newsstand or something?
Well, that's a newsstand, and you could buy cold drinks and newspapers like that. But a significant thing was that this building was never occupied above the ground floor. Yes.
Even in its earlier days?
No, sir.
I was not aware of that.
Well, some people have said that the taxes were different there if it was an unfinished building. And so there was never an office upstairs.
Huh. Did you know that, Dan?
No, but I think I'll pose that to the tax collector. As a modern-day innovation.
Because I know that one of your plans is to let the upstairs. My gracious, you've got thousands of square feet up there.
Yes. Well, now the only thing that I've ever seen upstairs is on the third floor when the model train people had the place there, and the vandals came in and stole those valuable train sets, so they had to close that. But
we just saw a moment ago a shot of the entrance to the restaurant, and if our viewers were wondering what that was, so we were talking about something else, but they threw that in on us. But
I'm sorry.
No. It's the upstairs we were mentioning, and one of the things that you hope to do, I think, Dan, is to lease that out for office or specialty shops or whatever.
True. Now, the upstairs was finished to an almost complete state. All the electricity was done, the plumbing was done, the doors and windows and carpentry and plaster were done. All of that was completed. All it needed was floor treatment, such as the rubber tile. But they left the rubber tile off, and so therefore they could say that it was unfinished for occupancy. And as a result, they created this special arrangement with the tax assessor so that they would not pay taxes on that several thousand feet of floor space. It was never used for any purpose other than purely donated and recreational, and it was given to a model railroaders club, and they had a very nice
Now, we see on our monitor here, this is some of the upstairs area. Beautifully arranged, those brass rails and all of that around there.
This is the grand lobby view, and we're starting from down here in the lobby, looking up at the surrounding balcony. And as you can see, the building truly is one of the, I guess you could say, the grand old dame of Texarkana, because it has an elegance and a Victorian style. It was created in the Victorian era by design and by educational process for the engineers who built this place, and we're fortunate enough to have inherited that in this community.
Well, I feel toward Union Station sort of like I do the church I have the joy of pastoring. It's one of those facilities that could never be rebuilt. Even if we could afford it, which we couldn't, the craftsmanship simply would not be there.
It's not here anymore either.
It just doesn't exist, and therefore this facility, like Beach Street Baptist Church and other facilities in town that are historic and landmark and all, we better enjoy them. That's right. We better take care of them and better keep them and preserve them, because when they're gone, they're gone. That's it.
And as you know, we have arranged this, and we hope that it will continue that way for perpetuity, but we hope that no one will ever have to pay admission fees to get into this building. That is the way it is set up now. This is a private operation, but we're trying to open it to the public on a...
Now, we're looking at a part of the lobby. This is over toward...
Ticket windows.
Ticket windows, okay.
And the back exit out to the trains.
It is so pretty.
And you're looking along the wall. That strikingly pink tile that you see in adjacent to the tan brick. We have a
Let's go back to that picture if we could, so we let Dan describe that.
We have numerous questions.
Go back to the picture if you can.
The design and decor of the inside of the building. And we truly have done nothing to these brick. They are glazed tile brick, and we simply clean them up after decades of misuse and disuse. Now, that other striking pink that you see there is called terracotta tile. It's not painted. It's not prepared by us in any fashion. It's simply cleaned up, and it is the work of the old masters. And it's my understanding that back in the days of public buildings not being built 40 and 50 at a time in a city, they would have a particular specific design arranged for a building, and at the completion of that contract, they would change the design. And if that be the case, then these terracotta tiles are all collector's items because there are no spares, there are no replacements, and there are no other parts that will match that anywhere in the country.
It is remarkable to me that this is not a paint job, that this is simply a cleanup job as far as those tile, the brick, because anyone who comes in here sees the pristine condition of the work. Now, I know you had some plaster work that you had to do, refinish, and some things of that nature. You were fortunate. You assembled a team of very skilled workers, obviously, who helped you put this together.
We had a number of people who would volunteer their services for one day, for 1 week, or for several months. And they will always be remembered by all of us who share and enjoy the utilization of this building. But those people, friends of my family and friends of Texarkana, were able to make this come true in large part due to their volunteer efforts.
We mentioned the ticket windows a moment ago. One of the things that I guess, like every community in the South, there are some not so pleasant reminders of the past. Some of the things we discuss are elegant and wonderful, and the nostalgia of it makes us long for the days gone by. One thing, however, that's not such a pleasant part of our history anywhere in this South, I suppose, would be that racial barriers were very evident. There was a separate ticket window, I believe, for white and black people, separate waiting areas. Even in my lifetime, I can remember the separate restrooms. That seems so almost unbelievable now. It really does.
It seems so foreign to our society.
At the time, it seemed so, I suppose, just taken for granted. There's the ticket window. This was, I suppose, the main lobby, and therefore the ticket window for white people. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. And on the other side of that, the windows for the black.
But now,
the whole waiting room, a separate waiting room for the black.
So the races did not mix in the lobbies or waiting.
Nor on the train.
Isn't that so?
On the train, yes.
They had special cars on the trains, and here the creation of this building and what you see that is completed is one side. We are currently rebuilding the other side. It was designed around an expansion joint in the building, and truly there are two separate buildings here, two separate terminals. One was the white and one was the black. And the beautiful part about the black side, they did not have nearly the millions of transfers going on as we had over here in this large active white side. And so that black side is almost pristine in its perfect preservation. It has had a lot of modification and a lot of work done to it over the years. I think there was a CETA program built there, there was a HUD program built there, there was a movie made over there, and the end result was that had been modified extensively. But we went back to the library, or to the museum and the library archives, found out exactly how that room was designed, and we have tried to reproduce it exactly, and that's what we're doing today, as a matter of fact.
Well, I was going to say, that side, having been over there, is one of the, I think, most remarkable parts of this whole facility. Now, there is a display case. We're looking at it now. It's behind us where we're seated, but it has a lot of just memorabilia and artifacts from the past. Tell us about some of the things in the display case.
You know, archives and collectibles are generally somebody's junk that they're about to throw out. This place has about 92,000 feet of collecting space. And believe me, there were about 140 dump truck loads of collectibles here. And we hauled most of it off. A lot of it we retained because we could see that it was useful and that it had a specific purpose. And some of it we have held on to so that we could show the public. We didn't know where to show it, where to give it, or I thought about giving it to the museum or the library. And I thought, well, we don't need that baggage porch any longer, and we don't need that parcel post window any longer. Why not build cases and set those up and display some of those things? Well, that became so popular, the things that we had found, that everyone began to get the habit, they began to get the idea. And we have had people bring us things that they remember that Granddad had from the original train station or from the old red brick train station that predated this one. For example, we had a young man come in and said, would you like to have the hands, the original hands, to the clock tower. And I thought, well, that can't be true, but they just can't be around any longer. And he had the hands to the original clock, and they're wooden. And so we have them on display.
Wow.
And I'm delighted.
They almost look like a airplane prop back
That's
there.
right. Yeah.
And we have another young lady who came in, and she said, she was about 80 years old, I believe, and she said that her grandfather had a spittoon from the original train station, and would I like to have it? And I said, of course, if you wash it out first.
Yes.
So she cleaned it all up and brought it up here, and we have it on display, and I have no idea how old it is.
How about that?
We have found in the junk such things as original, a crate of original street bricks. We have found such things as a complete collection of cross-tie dating nails. You don't know what that is, do you?
I have no idea.
I didn't either. And when they, before computers, when they would lay a cross tie, they'd drive a tack in it with 23 on it, meaning that that cross tie was placed in 1923. We have a complete collection of those that someone collected. And then he gave them to us, and we're going to place those on display. We have a number of pictures of the real trains, the real choo-choo trains, in which the various models and designators of all of the coal burners and oil burners, but steam-producing trains. It's a delightful collection of things that we've been able to acquire. We found money, rings, class rings, necklaces, bracelets, earrings, brooches, pins, pendants, all sorts of things.
You must have had a heyday just going through this place.
And we've had to put all of that in a safe deposit box because we certainly couldn't display it here.
Yeah.
And we have found such delightful artifacts. We're on search right now for the research that hopefully will give us the owner of a class ring. I think it's probably Texas High, 1951, and the initials are CLD. Someone told me they thought that might be Charles Lee Davis or some name like that. But we haven't been able to confirm that. And of course, it could be Tyler High School. That's the same number of letters.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Wilbur, when did this facility close down? It opened in 1929. When did it shut down and become a pigeon roost?
1971.
So 19 years have gone with
the pigeons took over.
Even prior to 1971, was it fairly active? Oh, now let's take a break here. Look at outside. Here are the trains. This is out. Do you call that the runway? What is it?
The midway.
The midway?
The midway that went out over the trains.
And this was where the passengers would come and go.
You know, and the midway went out for 4 different tracks there with the steps on either side. Only one is out there now. See how you go down to the train?
Oh, okay.
Well, there were 4 of those go out over the tracks there.
That thing went out another 110 feet.
110 feet.
And went over all of those tracks.
Because it served 4 railroads, is that correct? And so
yes, sir. Yeah.
You know, that just a sort of a lesson in cooperation back in those days, wasn't it?
Well, Texarkana would not be here except for the railroads. Railroads are basic for Texarkana there, and the cooperation it's absolutely necessary. You know, you can't fight with the facts. No, of course, the ownership, as I told you, belonged to the Union Station Trust, and the Texarkana National Bank president was always the head of that trust. But it's with the you really to restore this like you have. You've done a great service. Great service. Now the Justice Building ruins the clock. The clock used to be visible. You're talking
all
about
up and
the
down.
size of
Yes.
the hands. You used to be able to tell that you could see the clock from the post office. Because this is actually a state line, you see. We're close to the actual state line where we're sitting.
Well, is this facility in Arkansas or Texas or a little of both?
Well,
it's in both.
It's both. It had to be, you see, because the Cairo and Fulton Railroad had a permit to build to the state line. The Texas and Pacific had a permit to build to the Arkansas line. And that's the reason that it was the first depot in 80. See, Texarkana dates its history from 1873. And there was a depot here in 1875, and it straddled the state line. See, I mean, so that, of course, Texarkana is unique. Unique is not really the descriptive enough, because the state line is a curse. It's a curse there with all the problems that you have there, but it's different.
It's definitely different.
Yes.
Oh, it's
That's
definitely
for sure.
different. Yes.
We were talking a minute ago about why this facility closed. I know that passenger rail service so declined that it became extinct until Amtrak resurrected that. And then the trucking industry and the air freight industry seemingly just sort of left railroads in a lurch for a while. When this facility closed, was there still passenger service at that time, or had that even ceased?
Well, the passenger service, of course, you see, back in 1913, there were no roads at all, and when the Glidden tour came to Texarkana in 1913, they had to cut down trees to get from Index to Texarkana, and they had to ride the train. And instead of truck delivery, there were boxcars that went down and stopped at Falk and all of the way there and unloaded what you had there. That's the only way you could get there, was on the train, because you might start out with a wagon, but the good roads, but unfortunately, the good roads, we've learned to murder more people by the roads, but we've got to keep them, because people are not going to go back to mass transportation. And the government doesn't want them to go back there. I don't know why.
No one wants to wait till that train wants to leave.
That's right. I want to go right now. I want to go right now, and so I'm paying dearly for it.
We really are.
Yes. But I want to comment about your displays over there, and about the youngsters going there. The thing that's missing about the transportation rail today is that smokestack.
Yes.
That smokestack with that billowing smoke there. That something was going on. Now you know that little sleek, little electric diesel. And the reason, of course, in the early days, you couldn't have a train more than 15, 20 cars, because the drawbars would tear apart. So they wouldn't stay together. That's because of the jerk and starting and this. But then when the electric diesel, it just takes off. My daddy, who was more than 51 years on the TP, enjoyed 13 years of retirement, and they called engineers hogheads. And he confessed that an electric diesel was an improvement over a steam locomotive, and that is the statement.
I bet it was, to be sure.
Oh, yes, sir.
When we look at what happens today, everything's in such a hurry, and it's always so convenient. When this station was built, it was in the days where dinner napkins were made of linen,
Right.
tablecloths were cloths. Service was, I guess, something that we can't even relate to. It wasn't just necessarily walk to the counter and I'll have a number 4.
Yeah. Well, the dining cars on the railroads set the style. And from them, the hotels there, but the dining car was an exquisite place to eat. It was and we had the Cotton Belt Dining Car Department was headquartered here. It was fun to eat on the train.
I bet it was. Well, we're going to talk about eating when we return. We need to take a break right now, and if you're just joining us, Positive Alternatives this week is originating entirely from Union Station, the beautifully renovated facility in downtown Texarkana. It is a showpiece, and if you have not already made it, get on down here right away. We're going to talk about the eating facilities. You've seen just a little of them. We'll talk with Dan Bookout about the restaurant as well as the deli that is already open. Some folks have already discovered the good food down here. Maybe you will too. We'll be back in just a moment. Right now, this break from Pinewood Hospital, who bring Positive Alternatives to your home. We hope that this mental health tip from them will be of some help to you. We'll be back in as TV 36 and Positive Alternatives continues.
Having an addicted parent is a serious stress-producing experience for children. Addiction tends to erode a parent's ability to meet a child's basic needs for security, love, and guidance. When a parent is addicted, feelings of fear, anger, loneliness, and guilt may arise in the child. Addiction can create a dangerous loss of trust in a parent who has become self-absorbed, inconsistent, and unable to care for his child properly. A child attempting to cope with an addicted parent can benefit greatly from a relationship with a supportive, understanding adult. The child will communicate the seriousness of his emotional disturbance. Sensitive adults should recognize his signals of distress and respond appropriately by offering additional time, attention, and understanding. However, the stress from addiction in the family is likely to become so overwhelming to the child that outside help may be needed. Children often lose respect for their addicted parents. Children often become angry or afraid of their parents, or they may feel guilty and at fault for their parents' addiction. Children may actually reverse the parent-child role and feel responsible for taking care of their parent. Reversing the parent-child role has a detrimental effect upon a child. The child is dependent upon adults to provide proper care for him. When he has to care for his parent, he is cheated out of much of his childhood. Addicted parents are less available to their children and are less sensitive to the children's immediate needs, leaving the children to care for themselves. Addicted parents are caught up in a fantasy world of escape from painful reality. They set a role model of coping with life problems by ignoring or escaping. Another detrimental effect is that their range of coping techniques is likely to be more limited than those of the average child. Much of their energy is used in just day-to-day survival. They are likely to have less ability in problem solving and coping with stress. They are more vulnerable to emotional problems than the average child. If you know of a child who has suffered from having an addicted parent, seek the counseling help of a caring professional today.
When I'm listening to a parent whose kid is in trouble, I don't just hear what they're saying. I hear what they're feeling, what they're going through. That's why when you call about your son or daughter, the first thing I'll do is listen. Then I can help you figure out the next step. So don't wait. Call us right now. Together, we can do something.
Call Pinewood Hospital, 1-800-367-3702.
All right, no homework today. Let's do something fun. Yeah, why don't we?
Hey, you looking for fun, huh? Want to smoke some weed?
We better not. Superman! Wonder Woman!
Don't worry about those hoods.
We'll go somewhere that's really fun. This is great!
Now you can have fun.
Discover the club that beats the streets.
Your local Boys and Girls Club.
Welcome back to Union Station in downtown Texarkana. Positive Alternatives originating from here this week, and our guests, Dan Bookout and Wilbur Smith. When we left, we said we were going to talk about the restaurants because there are really two eating facilities here. The deli is open in the morning for breakfast and then throughout the day with sandwiches and soft drinks and coffee. Dan, I guess it's been a couple of months ago, the last day of school, we brought our kids down here early one morning and they just loved it. And it was so much fun to come down here and I guess I couldn't even appreciate how excited they were to be in this big train station. And they would go see the trains. But the thing that Dad was impressed with was it didn't cost very much to eat down here. I said, does Dan know how to price these things? Because it was so inexpensive. I was thinking, he can't serve this food for this. So it's a bargain. I think people are afraid to try it. They think, oh, well, a place like that's going to be out of my budget. It's not. It's cheaper than stopping at a convenience store and microwaving something. So.
I confess my total inability to appreciate and comprehend all of the ramifications of food service. It's a profession all its own, and it's one that anyone who has ever been associated with it can develop a tremendous respect for. And I have...
There's the menu for the deli even as we speak. So.
Yeah. And so you notice that we have a breakfast for $1, which is 1 egg and a strip of bacon and a piece of toast for $1. And, you know, we have all sorts of modifications to that. We can have ham or cheese or omelet or something like that. And we know that that's a little low on price, but it kind of serves two vehicles. Number one, it develops a following, and number two, it develops a certain amount of advertising and marketing for us. And we have a following and a marketing program for that as well. And the delicatessen that we have serves a valuable asset to the police departments, to the fire departments, to the train departments in industry, because they're here early at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's designed particularly around them and these early morning trains. But it's true, my prices probably are considerably lower than they should be.
I shouldn't have told you that. Now you're going to raise them. But when I came in, I thought, okay, now Dan's restoring a 1929 building. He doesn't have to give us 1929 prices. He's not going to be able to stay in business.
Well, I've heard that those prices are approximately 1929 prices.
By the way, you also, in addition to the deli, have a full-scale restaurant that serves lunch and dinner.
Yes.
Tell us about the restaurant. I understand you've just hired a new manager for the facilities.
The Union Station restaurant was never a reality. It was built, but it was never opened. And the reason why is because in 1929, in the stock market crash, the Harvey House and the people who had the franchise determined that they should not make the investment of opening the restaurant because they didn't feel that you had enough money to spend there to keep it alive. And so, having the franchise, it just sat dormant for 10 years until the war came along, at which point the war took over through the Red Cross and made that a Red Cross donut and coffee shop. That's the only purpose it ever served in the history of the train station. We went in and completely modified, modernized, and rebuilt the entire floor plan, and we've kept the floor plan. The restaurant that was to have been is the restaurant that is now. And we have brought in some professionals. Steve and Lolita Mitchell have just begun to take over the restaurant and the food service in its entirety, and they're professionals in this area. And they live in Texarkana. They've worked here for a number of years, and they are developing a beautiful menu. And of course, when we opened the restaurant 2 months ago, we opened it because we were finished with the construction, and the thing to do is open it and let the people begin to come in and try it. And it has been overwhelmingly accepted. We have banquet rooms and dining rooms and special facility conference rooms and things of that nature, in addition to the restaurant. And people are booking and reserving and calling in for those on a daily basis. We're booking about 3 of those functions a day. And frankly, it's far beyond my capacity to cope with. And I am delighted to have been able to find someone with the skill and ability such as Steve and Lolita to be able to do this and do it professionally.
Some folks who may have come very early when you first opened and they experienced that it was difficult to get in and out in a hurry. Any restaurant's going to have that kind of thing at the very, very beginning. And obviously this is one of the things with Steve and is it
Lolita.
Lolita coming in. It'll give you the opportunity to sort of turn that part over to them and, and let them have those hassles. There's one of the beautiful ceiling fans here in the facility, and there's so many things that are just nostalgic and all in their view. Wilbur, this was a place, let me ask you, during the war, this was a place where many tearful goodbyes and many exuberant reunions were held. I have a feeling there are people in this town who would come back here and stand in this lobby to remember this was the last place they ever saw their son when he went to war. He never returned. And others will come and remember this was where they came and waited on that midway until they saw their husband or their son get off that train, having been in Europe or Japan. And tell us what it must have been like in those times.
I've seen the Sunshine Special with the Texas and Pacific and Missouri Pacific. Used to run sometime as many as 6 sections, 21 cars to a section, and soldiers standing in the vestibule. And Texarkana Red Cross chapter won national attention by the thousands of people that the Red Cross fed. But as you say, this being we had the Queen, people, hope, all around there. This is as close as the direct movement of troops came through here. That was a touching, because some of those boys never came back.
You know, I cannot help but think, especially in a day where flag burning and other things are issues, how it must be very emotional for some people to return to this facility and remember their sons going off and never coming back from that war effort. That have to be very touching for them.
And we see that today. We see the aged, the elderly, 70 and 80-year-old folks who will come in, and they'll just be standing there quietly with tears running down their cheek. And when I originally began to see that, it concerned me a great deal because I could not imagine why they would be in such pain here. And I thought we had done something wrong or were doing something wrong, and all they were doing was reminiscing. And it is a heart-rending sight to see. And then when you think that you're about ready to offer your condolences, you find that this was not the mother who lost her son or the father who lost his son. This is the son who came home, and he's here reminiscing. Wow. And those are tears of joy and reminiscence. And so that makes your day when you see that.
Have you had some maybe exceptional little anecdotes come forth from this renovation as people have come in and remarked or told you things or given their appreciation?
One of the most exceptional things that has happened is when someone that you hold in a great state of regard comes in and gives you a compliment on the work that you've done.
Uh-huh.
That makes your day. And when Wilbur Smith tells me that we've done a good job, I may take the rest of the day off.
Well, I think you could take the rest of the week off because Wilbur has certainly been complimentary.
Well, this is amazing. Amazing grace. It's amazing, Dan.
I agree with you. Dan,
oh, look. Now, the windows in this building are beautiful.
They are.
Beautiful.
Those are gorgeous.
That's looking on Front Street. And by the way, I had a question the other night where a man called me and he said, "Do you remember when they had the whale on exhibition on Front Street here?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Do you remember how it smelled?" And I said, "No, I do not remember." I took 2 flat cars, but you see, the track never went. This is Front Street. The track started, the team track started at the Huckins house. Well, and then ran down where all of the grocery and milling place and all of the businesses, they had their own facilities to unload and load boxcars.
So there were operating tracks at the front door.
Yeah.
How about that?
We just had to put a gangplank across from the. Then you walk across that and loaded the cars. Anyway.
Dan, some speculation has been whether or not Amtrak would move their ticket operations into this area.
Yes.
Do you foresee that might happen somewhere down the line?
Yes, I believe that it may. I have not actively pursued that. You know that Amtrak is a public entity, and they rent space from us at the far end of the building. Because this building was closed for so long and was never designed with an installed operating elevator, they needed a space where they could serve the public from ground level, and so they have always utilized the far east end of the building. And since we have restored and brought this thing back alive, Amtrak agents have contacted their directors and managers, and the chairman of the board, Mr. Luna, even has been down here from Washington and from Dallas. A number of the other executives have been here to Texarkana to visit with us about the possibility of moving back up here. Mr. Luna adamantly states that that's where we belong.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with him more. The thought of him bringing Amtrak back in here is a delightful one, I think, for the entire community. And as a matter of fact, we probably would not even increase the rent. Just tell them to bring an elevator and let's get to it.
Yeah.
And I understand from our attorney, Jack Gooding, that in fact Washington has contacted him in that regard with the possibility of moving into the lobby and the old ticket office spaces. And if that should occur, then of course that will be the crowning event for the restoration part of this facility.
It would really restore so much of the heritage.
It would not be Union Station out there in name only. It would truly be Union Station with a train.
Absolutely. Do you envision maybe some specialty shops, little stores? Or
I think so. We are in the process right now. We're setting up what we call a free market, in which we invite people to come down at no charge with a folding table and whatever arts and skills and crafts, hobbies that they might want to display, to show off, to sell, is fine with us. Just bring it out here and put it in this lobby.
How about that?
And we're going to do that and see how far it will expand, because we feel that it'll expand to complete the lobby. It will also fill up the upstairs. We think it'll fill up the west side of the lobby. We think it will fill up all, we have 800 feet of covered space out back that we could probably put overall about 200 spaces. Now, I don't want to describe this as a bazaar or as a flea market, but in reality, it is a free market in which we're not going to charge. We're just going to let that bring people back downtown. And we think it will be like a weekend quadrangle every weekend.
Yeah.
And we hope that will happen.
Well, I know from being involved with Bond, this is one of the most exciting things that is happening downtown. We all hope that it will spur more people to realize that downtown doesn't have to be dead, that she's been a little ill for a while, but with the right medicine, she can be up on her feet and going strong. And that's my hope. I know, Dan, it's yours, and I certainly, Wilbur, know it's yours. And I hope that that's a dream that all of us see in the very near future. We're just about out of time, but I want to say again my deepest appreciation. You have both gotten up very early this morning and helped us as we have gotten set up here at Union Station, and you've been very gracious and kind to give us your time. Wilbur, to you and Dan, I salute both of you. Wilbur, for your amazing recollection of the facts and history of this city. You're one of my favorite people. And Dan, you're one of the other ones. I feel like I've been blessed today by being around two of Texarkana's very finest people.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you today who have joined us on Positive Alternatives. We appreciate your staying with us for today's program, which has originated entirely from Union Station. And we hope you will be back with us again next week for another edition of Positive Alternatives.
The way to and from and all points beyond www.texaseagle.y'all. Come on the way, the Texas Eagle way. Through the heart of the nation, a traveling sensation. Get your reservation.